What if Wes Craven directed Scream 5? Now, let me just clarify. I have no way of knowing exactly what he would have done. This is just me visualizing what a version of a sequel to Scream 4 would have looked like had we gotten that back in 2013, 14, even 15. Because while Scream 2022 is technically Scream 5 and features most of the survivors from the fourth movie, it also is about a brand new set of characters who were not hinted or alluded to, taking the center focus, which makes it feel less like it's actually a continuation of that story. So I would pick up about 2 or 3 years after Scream 4, and the first thing that would be different is that Sydney would stay in Woodsboro because she would have learned this lesson that after trying to get away from this city, in the second film by going to college, in the third film by hiding out in the woods, in the fourth film by just leaving the place altogether, she just can't escape Ghostface and the legacy of what has happened during all these various murder sprees. And I would have it to where, even though she's in this city, the place where these murders have taken place, there is almost a sort of ironic positive air in the sense that she's a teacher, she's taken up, mentoring some of her students. She's really made a life for herself in the last couple of years that is having a positive impact on both her and the people around her. I think that after several movies of torment, her having the courage to be closer or in the area that has been the subject of that is something that she's made peace with. Like, she never truly stops believing there's a possibility Ghostface will come back or there'll be some new set of murders, but she's not running away from it anymore. She's like, if it happens, it happens. I'll do the best I can. I've survived this long because I'm resilient, and anything that comes about now, at least I know I can take care of myself. Now, moving over to Kirby, I would have it to where, because as far as I can remember, I don't think they told us Kirby's exact age in Scream 4. I know that they've given some allusion to it in the sixth movie, but I didn't see that. But for the sake of this idea, I would have Kirby as one of her students, as one of the kids that she's a teacher for at this college that she's teaching at. And I would have it to where a big part of Kirby's arc is that, she likes horror movies, she likes seeing these different films that are about killing, but she never expected that would happen in her life, that her best friend would turn out to be the very same monsters that she saw in these different movies. And I think having Sydney and Kirby have interactions where it's like, I got betrayed by my cousin, you got betrayed by your best friend, it's awful, just kind of like reflecting on what the sense of betrayal they both feel as a result of Jill, would serve to give them some decent character interactions. Not to mention that, Sydney could also talk about the past ghost faces as well, which is one of the critiques I have of the original four films, that the other ghost faces really don't get mentioned besides the first two. I'd say the arc I'd be the most interested in playing with would be Dewey. See, Scream 4 introduced something that the Scream 2022 spat in the face of, in my opinion, which was Dewey as sheriff. Dewey as the top cop, as the one who is delegating of most responsibilities, is the person who runs the shop, metaphorically. That status quo could have been so interesting if it were kept for more than one movie. And what I'd like to do with it, again, in this hypothetical version of Scream 5, is to have Dewey have this arc where at the start of the movie he's kind of reclusive, sort of like Scream 2022, except he actually has an arc where it doesn't just end with him getting, murdered to prop up new characters. But I digress. I would like to see, in this version of the movie, Dewey have this arc where he feels like he let everyone down. He was in charge for the first time during one of these murder sprees. He thought that would make him better prepared, and his wife almost got killed. He almost got killed. His other close friend almost got killed. It would be something that really haunts him because the lives of his deputies were in his hand as their commander, as the person that runs the shop now. And Gail would play a very big role in getting him out of that slump that he's in, as well as Sydney. I'd kind of have it to where for sections of the movie he's kind of by himself, and then you see, Gale will check on him, and then Sydney will check on him, and then maybe like even Kirby would check on him, and then gradually through the movie as he's given the positive reinforcement of, hey, you've assisted us with 4 murder sprees. We're alive in large part thanks to you. This would give him, I think, a very appealing arc, and then possibly set up, if we're doing a, again, hypothetical 6th film, him to be, back in full force and much more confident in his role as sheriff in a possible sequel to this. But I just think as a standalone arc for this movie, it really would work, because it's like survivor's guilt, but also the responsibility of, I was in charge and this horrible thing happened, and I just don't think I can live with myself after failing, or perceiving myself to have failed. So while Dewey would mostly, at least again I'd say for the first half, maybe for most of it, because I really want to build up him as kind of involved in the plot, but not like out in the front like he was in the past, where it's just kind of reclusive. And then when he shows back up with his confidence restored, it's like this complete transformation in terms of the way that the heroes, and when I say heroes, I'm referring to like the good guy group of, himself and Sydney and Gale, are able to deal with Ghostface, because now they have one of their aces, referring to Dewey, with them as well, and no longer having that doubt or lack of self-assurance. The biggest thing that I can think of for Gale would probably be that you have an inversion of her arc in 4, where she couldn't figure out what to write. She was trying to stay relevant. She even gets like kind of subtly irritated by the fact that Charlie considered Sydney as, visiting her, visiting the high school as more important than Gale herself coming. In this version of the 5th movie, I would have Gale successful, and again, this is stuff that's kind of slightly, because I said before, Scream 2022, as much as I don't like that movie, there are certain aspects of it that I do think, if they were done in a way with the story that was more respectful and paying attention to the characters that they already had, it could have worked. And one of the things I liked about the film was that Gale was successful. It was an inversion of her role in 4. But in this inversion, I would have her be successful while still being in Woodsboro. And it would be so ironic, because while she enjoys having, it could be her own show, some very successful book, maybe a blog, whatever type of thing that people deem as kind of like in the now, relating to this point in 2014, 2015, she would also not be willing to do, she would show a much larger amount of restraint. Like, hey, you guys want me to move out of town to host some national, show where millions of people are going to watch me? As much as I would have loved this, 10, 20 years ago, I'm married and I have a husband, and I can't let him just stay in this town being depressed about some murder sprees. If something happens to him, I don't know what I'd do to with myself. Just, I would show that while she is now finally receiving the attention that she has clamored for since the series began, it's happening at a point where she's just not as interested in it, even though she still wants it a little bit, just not as interested in it as she was in the past. And I think it would show a very large amount of character development on her part. Now, of course, the biggest twist, the one that would make this movie very different from the version of Scream 5 that we had, is that I would keep Jill alive. For several reasons. One, we can retcon her getting shot. Or we can just say that was either a dream sequence that somebody had, or that it was a non-fatal. That's not difficult at all. But from a narrative standpoint, I would keep her alive as to experiment with the idea of what happens when a ghost face survives. Every time we get revealed to who they are, and then they're taken out. And one of the original ideas for Scream 5 was that Sydney would have amnesia, and then Jill would go and be a college student, and then some new ghost face would show up and know what she did. The version of what I prefer to have happen with her in this idea is lifted from Scream 3's original plot, where you had Stu from prison kind of directing these new ghost faces to go after Sydney. But what I would do to make a little bit of a twist is that I would have Jill as this incarcerated individual who they know for a fact she's not leaving out of there. They have her 24-hour surveillance. She's confirmed to just be in jail. But there's these new ghost faces. It could be one, it could be two, probably two, but well, just a few new ghost faces or one new ghost face. And they're going out, they're hacking people, they're slashing, they're doing all the stuff that Ghostface usually does. And Dewey, Gale, and Sydney, and even to a lesser extent Kirby, all have this idea of like, hey, so are you behind this? Is this one of your acolytes? Is this somebody that you met online? Is this one of these people that you've actually, obviously you've directly influenced them with your murder spree a few years ago, but is this someone that you're in contact with? I think that idea where they just kind of keep pressing on, are you responsible for this? And she's not directly answering. She's like, maybe I am. Who knows? I can talk to people even without phone. Just kind of like playing mind games. I think it'd make for some interesting, almost Hannibal Lecter like scenes, if you ask me. And then just sort of giving advice. And if I were Ghostface, still I would do this, because it would show that she's still out for herself, but is just making the best of the situation that she's in. And as far as Judy is concerned, I would probably I would really like the idea that after the murders in Scream 4, they can't seem to get any new people to want to be cops anymore. They can't really get new individuals to be like, oh yeah, I want to take up the badge and protect the great people of this city. No, because every couple of years, the teenagers decide to go and murder a bunch of innocent people, and that includes cops usually, or rather, people that they deem as getting in their way oftentimes too. So she would play a bigger role in the sense that I would probably have her as the one that's kind of like the glue, where she's in, doing her little investigation, and she'll talk to Sydney and Kirby and Gale and give them updates on what the cases are, and then she'll check on Dewey, because that was actually another part of Scream 5 that upset me, that 4 has so many little scenes of kind of like Dewey and Judy teasing in terms of just like her admiration for him, and sort of this, they have this little like chemistry going on. And Scream 5 is like, oh, well, the actual Scream 5 or Scream 2022 just completely has no interactions between them, which I think is very unfortunate, because, like I said, their chemistry was one of the aspects of 4 that I really enjoyed. I liked seeing Dewey play off a cop that was lesser experienced than him, and I think that she would be another good example of a foil for Dewey, where it's like, for him, being the one in charge and still having people get murdered by Ghostface made it to where he completely just got turned off from even wanting to help anymore, or at least wanting to be the sheriff or be involved with trying to stop this stuff. And for Judy, it made her even more vigilant and like, yeah, this town has murderers. Okay, well, I signed up knowing that it was going to be dangerous, so I'm ready for anything. Just, I think that dynamic, and sort of having them play off each other a few times before Dewey gets out of his slump, could make for some interesting scenes, because he is the older and more experienced officer, not even just counting, being the sheriff in 4, but just as someone who has seen multiple murder sprees, which have included members of one of his close friends' family turning on her. He just has this extremely cynical view that, like, yeah, we'll stop this one, and then 2-3 years later, here comes another one. Then 2-3 years later, here comes another one. I would really have her or Gale make the point of, you have stopped these before, and you can do it again. Maybe, when you take out evil, it doesn't just completely disappear forever, but you can at least stop it for some time, and take it out as far as in protecting the ones that you care about. But yeah, those are some of my ideas for Scream 5 if I were trying to actually make a sequel to the 4th one. There is some talk of them possibly retconning the actual 5th and 6th movie out of continuity, which you wouldn't see me complaining, because, as I said before, my interest in Scream died when they killed off David Arquette's character. And I think one of the things I've always liked about Scream were the protagonist and being able to continue their stories. And 4 introduced a status quo, a new set of conditions and circumstances that I think a lot of people who watch it after marathoning through 1 through 3 don't seem to stop and appreciate, because it's over so quickly thanks to the gap between 4 and 5 and just them deciding to skip over a lot of stuff and have it happen off screen. But I really believe that if we had a Scream 5 where you had one person who we knew was a killer, we didn't know if they were still killing, but we knew they were a killer. And there's like this tension of, are they connected to the new killers? And you have the processing of grief from the 4 or 5 survivors from the last movie. And it all culminates in this big final battle where all the pieces have come together, all the players are in this. I think it could have worked very well. It maybe might not have been the scariest movie, but from a standpoint of being a character-driven commentary on survivor's guilt and loss and forgiveness and reconciliation, I think it would have made for a decent film. So, thanks for watching.